I was definitely curious about the case of the girl with the long face, but I didn't like the narrative structure, and to be honest, I didn't like the ending. I'll obviously discuss the ending with a spoiler warning. This is the first segment in the second episode of the 18th season of Arthur, and Fern is over at George's house, and she has to go home because she's just feeling sad, and she doesn't know why. So George hires Buster, of all people, to help him work out why Fern is sad. And I feel like there are probably easier ways of finding out why somebody is sad, such as asking them, and if they don't tell you, you should mind your own business. I feel like it definitely should have just portrayed that message. That would have been really important. But nevertheless, they try and find out what's wrong with her. And the reason I don't like the narrative structure is because we constantly have these scenes where Baxter, I've never called him Baxter before, Buster is the PI, and we have these black and white scenes, and they're atmospheric, and it's like we're meant to be in an old mystery film, and I hate it. I really, really hate it. It did my head in so much. It's well written. I have to give it credit. It's very well written, particularly a lot of Buster's dialogue. Um, a lot of what he says is pretty well written, but the actual narrative, the structure I don't like, and the journey I didn't like, and unfortunately, I didn't like the destination either. So, a spoiler from now, I guess. I have nothing else to say about it because, as I said, I feel like the message itself of sticking your nose into somebody's business is not a good message to portray, and they didn't at any point try and say you shouldn't be doing this. Obviously, it's nice to try and help somebody if they're upset, but if they don't know why they're upset, you shouldn't start poking around and talking to other people and basically gossiping about them. That's a terrible message. So that was awful as well. Spoiler from now, at the very end, we find out what's wrong with Fern, and it's quite simply that sometimes she gets sad. And yeah, I appreciate that message. I think there's this, especially nowadays, there are a lot of campaigning. There's a lot of campaigning to tell people that it's okay to feel sad, and that if you feel sad sometimes, that's okay. Because there's this thing, especially on social media, with people's fake lives. Um, you're supposed to be happy all the time, and on social media, on Instagram and things, we only see the happy parts of people's lives. So it makes us feel like we should all be happy all of the time, and if we're not, there's something wrong with us. But actually, obviously, the opposite is true. And I think for young children especially, it's a really important message that it's okay to be sad. Sometimes you might not even know why you're sad, but that's part of human nature. Absolutely try and find ways to get out of it. That's not to say you should constantly remain sad, but if it does happen, it's fine. And Fern, to her credit, even said that there were good things coming out of it, because when she's in this kind of blue period, she sometimes gets ideas for her writing, which I think is very commonplace if you have mental health issues, you suffer from depression or anything else. It can often be a time of reflection when you start to come out of it, not when you're in the depth of it, because nothing works, but when you start to come out of it, it's like you've had almost like a troubleshooting, like you've had to turn off all of your creative juices to go through this depressive period, and then you turn it back on again and things start to work even better than they were just before you went into that slump. And that in itself is a great silver lining. So the message of being down sometimes is good, but I feel like to get to that message, you've got to sit through a whole lot of rubbish. The case of the girl with the long face could have been promising, but I hated the narrative style. I hated the message of snooping in somebody else's business without any repercussions. Definitely not a good episode.